Hi, this is Little Dwarf and I present to you the second episode in my series covering secrets, Easter eggs and hidden details in my favorite game of all time, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. If you didn't see the previous episode, there is a link in the description where you will also find timestamps to the various parts of this video, as well as additional links to provide more information and broader context about my findings. This episode will cover the Santa Monica hub, as well as the surrounding areas such as the Ocean House Hotel, and also one small detail I didn't present in Haven the last time. So first, the user Snow Michael on the Bloodlines subreddit suggested a way to test the interaction between the TV newscaster studio and the TV itself, which I showcased in the last episode. And sure enough, if you no-clip into the studio and then drop some items just right on the desk, they will show up on your TV back in the Haven. It's a little bit tricky though, since the field of view of the camera is rather limited, so you have to place the items precisely for them to be visible. With that shown, let's go out onto the streets of Santa Monica to showcase the first couple of things. First, let's stop at the traffic lights. If you look closely, there's a sticker with the words "fuck you" on it, a recurring theme of small details of written down text in places you're probably not going to notice. Next, the way Gimble's intercom works is quite curious. I'm not well versed in modding of Bloodlines, or any games for that matter, so I welcome any correction in the comments, but it seems to me that for the dialogue to initiate, there must be an actual NPC somewhere on the map to speak the line, as it were, even if you're talking through a phone or an intercom.
Yes, may I help you?
So when you're talking to Gimble through the intercom, you're really talking to this bum, hidden behind the gate of the parking garage at the pier. Take a look.
Yes, may I help you?
Next, there's a funny sign on the fence of the junkyard. It starts ordinarily enough as a warning about trespassing, but ends in "violators will be shot, survivors will be shot again." I really hope that's not a standard procedure in Los Angeles. There are actually two interesting things in the junkyard building itself, so let's check it out. First, there is this copy paper of Doom, which is just a funny name, I guess. But then there is this, a stack of papers with the word "Red Room" repeated over and over again. It's another direct reference to Stephen King's The Shining, and more specifically to the character of Danny, who, using his foresight, tries to warn his family about the impending danger by writing the same word around the hotel. Red Room is, of course, murder spelled backwards, which is more than fitting for this location in particular, because it is the junkyard where you will finally confront the local serial killer at the end of a lengthy side quest. And speaking of the serial killer, if you visit the Santa Monica diner, you can actually meet him hours before knowing it's even him. Sadly, you can't really interrogate him, force a confession or even kill him. He is immortal. It's a little bit of a wasted opportunity if you ask me. How cool would it be if you could accidentally stop the serial killer without even knowing it? There are two more things worthy of note here in the diner. First, there are all of those mock-up brand names of various products, drinks and sweets. I only recognize some of those because I assume they are based off of American brands in particular and may not be available in my country. Still, there's Sepsi, a mock-up for Pepsi, NNNs, a stand-in for M&Ms, and Strittles, a reference to Skittles. If you recognize any other, please let me know in the comments. Then there is something a little more out of the ordinary and a lot easier to miss. On one of the tables, or actually on all of them, you can read about the local special offer. For a meager $450, you can get a spoiled catfish with a pleasing image to boot. The next stop is the Santa Monica Doomsayer. If you don't listen to him closely, it seems he's just there to serve as ominous background noise, and it's mostly true, but I personally think that there may be more to some of his lines. First, one of his lines is actually part of the lyrics of a song called Dead Flag Blues by the band Godspeed You, Black Emperor.
The sewers are all muddied with 1,000 lowly suicides.
The car's on fire, and there's no driver at the wheel. And the sewers are all muddied with 1,000 lonely suicides. And a dark wind blows.
But there are also lines that betray a surprising familiarity with some elements of the lore of the world of darkness, despite the Doomsayer being immortal, which you can check by looking at his aura using the Auspex discipline.
The roots of this city wrap around the Great Worm, and all who live in its stinking bowels bloat themselves on apocalypse nectar.
The Great Worm and the Apocalypse, huh? It reminds me of the cosmology of the Garou, the werewolves of the world of darkness. Sure, it's the worm that the Garou fear as the ultimate despoiler and the one that will bring about the apocalypse, but a worm is sometimes a name used in mythology to denote a snake-like, legless creature crawling around, so it can be seen as a similar creature to a worm. And humanity lives in its bowels, which is something that many Garou definitely believe, that humans have been corrupted by the worm and are acting as his unwitting agents, serving the worm in return for profit, power and wealth, which can be considered the apocalypse nectar.
The bones of your ancestors will rise up and reclaim the flesh that they lent their sorry progeny!
This is pretty much a direct reference to Gehenna, a world-ending event in the Kindred mythology, which will see the antediluvians rising up to punish their misbegotten children, whom they've lent their flesh by creating them in the first place. If you want to listen to the remaining lines of the Doomsayer, there's a link in the description to the compilation containing all of them. Next, there's a rather unexpected reference in the Santa Monica Suites. Check this quote on the screen of the bounty hunter Carson's computer. "Grumble grumble, it's a secret to everyone." It's actually a direct quote from the first game in the Legend of Zelda series. Another direct pop culture reference in the form of a computer quote can be seen in the clinic. In one of the offices, there's a computer with the personnel files. Check out the one for Dr. Roberts. The part about how no one can succeed like Dr. Roberts is a direct quote from the lyrics of a Beatles song, Dr. Robert. Next, on Killpatrick's desk in his bail bond office, you can find this paper about aliens and UFOs. I just find it strangely fitting for Arthur to be a conspiracy nut. In the Tattoo Parlor's basement, there's a sticker on what I think is a water boiler saying "Hit me up," which I just found kind of funny, because despite being somewhat of an innuendo, that's exactly what you're supposed to do with a water boiler. Next, let's visit Gimble's prosthetics. In the lobby, there are a couple of magazines with rather funny names and contents. Take a moment to appreciate them. A hooker magazine with tips how to raise your hourly earnings, and Beach Frenzy, among others. Man, those must have some weird target audiences, the latter especially. I can kind of see the former working out in some environments actually, but that's beside the point. In Gimble's backroom, there are a bunch of those strange photos and drawings. Most betray his obsession with the human anatomy, and some of them are actually well-known anatomical designs, most famously the Vitruvian Man by Leonardo Da Vinci himself. But there's also this really weird photo of a clown with the word "dad" written near it, and this cow demon with elongated legs or something like that. I don't really have much to say about those, as I couldn't find any sources or references for those. I just think they are creepy and worth a look at. If any of you know where they come from or what they are a reference to, please let me know in the comments. Next, there's the Asylum Club. In Jeanette's/Therese's office, there are a couple of humorous stickers on Jeanette's desk. But what's really impressive and interesting here is that all of the paintings, save for what it seems to be their family portrait, are actually real paintings, albeit sometimes in woefully low quality. I just wanted to comment on one of them. This piece, called Love and Pain by the artist Edward Monk. Even with its official name, you could probably make some connections to the relation between Jeanette and Therese, but here's the kicker. It's also known under the name Vampire. How cheeky of you, Troika Games. Another interesting detail, although maybe I should address it as a bug, because I'm pretty sure it is a bug, is that you can actually stealth kill the Blood Guardian in the Gallery Noir. I'm not sure what the Blood Guardian even is, but it seems mightily weird for it to be susceptible to throat slashing. Next, there are a couple of things to check out on the Santa Monica Pier. First, there's Beckett in his wolf form, watching you from afar. You probably knew that already, if you're a fan of the game. But what you might have not known is that the devs forgot to prevent you from being able to kill Beckett here. If you shoot the wolf enough times, it will technically die and thus will not run off when you approach, instead just standing there. Of course, it doesn't impact the game in any way, as it's not supposed to happen. On the pier itself, there are many references to classic video games, rendered here in form of either paintball or arcade machines. I don't have much to say about those, as the references are quite self-explanatory and take the form of a straight-up visual inspiration. There are two soda machines here with rather interesting names and flavors on offer. Yellow Snow, for example. or better yet, Demon Seed with the slogan "Slobber it down, yummy." In the beach house, there's mainly one point of interest, the TV. The game the thugs are playing is actually Bloodlines itself. You can see that they are in the sewers on their way to the Warrens, which I guess explains why they paused and rage quitted. You can see the Jimisi creation on the screen, but what's particularly interesting is that it's apparently a beta or even alpha version of the game, as evidenced by the different user interface compared to the game we all played in the end. You can see the glimpses of this old UI in one of the first trailers for the game. There's a link for it in the description if you want to see. Next, let's go visit the Sabbat Warehouse. There's only one thing I found worthy of note here, and it's still nothing that special. It's just this blackboard here. It's covered in writing that I find rather unusual for a bunch of Sabbat-aligned thugs with a thirst for murder. If you use violence, you shouldn't be here, for example. Doesn't strike me as something those guys would write down, or keep written down around them anyway. Guns don't kill people, fear and cowardice do. Here at least somebody had the decency to write down the classic comeback, guns don't kill people, I do. We were made for peace. When will racism end? History has a way of repeating itself, and if we don't stop violence and destruction now, when will it end? I can't decipher all of the writing of the board, so feel free to visit this location yourself if you want. Maybe you'll uncover something more there. Finally, to end this episode, let's explore what's probably one of the most highly regarded levels in Bloodlines, the Haunted Ocean House Hotel. I dedicate this segment of the video to my glorious liege lord and best friend, Quilles, who was one of the people encouraging me to make those videos in the first place. First, there is this construction machine here from the Hellcat brand. I'm not sure if that's a reference to any real company, but I've always found it kind of funny that the first thing you encounter on your way to the haunted hotel already has hell in its very name. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. The hotel and its story are another direct reference to The Shining by Stephen King, even down to the design, which loosely resembles the Overlook Hotel from the Stephen King miniseries, although it's probably more directly based on the actual Ocean House Hotel in Rhode Island. The story follows King's The Shining quite closely, though. A father goes mad after spending time with the groundskeeper and murders his family with an axe, which was also Jack Torrance's signature weapon. Before Jack, however, the previous groundskeeper, Delbert Grady, also killed his family with an axe, which might be a better lead since he had 2 children, just like in the game, and Jack only had 1. Not to mention that unlike Jack, Grady did ultimately succeed. In the hotel's boiler room, there's a quote scratched into one of the boilers, "Freddy was here." This seems to be a direct reference to the character of Freddy Krueger and his famous boiler room scene from the movie Nightmare on Elm Street. Besides it is this very mysterious quote, "Hounds of hell, fires of hell, burn with me." It's signed, but I can't really read it, and I couldn't track the origins of the quote. If anyone knows where it comes from, please let me know in the comments. Most of you probably know about the creepy child drawing in one of the upper rooms, but you might have not seen the other one, with the dinosaur and the word hate. Is it supposed to mean that the child hated dinosaurs? It's no wonder his own father cut him down with an axe then. Finally, let's check the moment where you are transported to the past. It's actually a whole separate room, and when you step into the original ruined one and advance sufficiently, you get teleported to the other one, and then teleported back once you get the pendant. You can check it out by no-clipping. Lastly, I just wanted to let you know that this painting you see in the past version of the room is also actually a real painting. That wraps up this episode. Thank you for watching, and once again I'll be very grateful for any feedback, be it positive or negative. Did you know everything, or did I show you something new? What was the most interesting thing to you? Anyway, that's all for this one, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!